we will get going. So Trustee Smith, we are recording. It's all you to get us going.
All right, welcome everyone to the second academic subcommittee. Thank you so much for being here. We want to take a minute and recognize that it is International Women's Day today, and the profession that we are all dedicated to is about over 70% women. I looked it up, and the last data point I could find was it's about 76% women. So we want to make sure that we know that when we are honoring teachers, we are honoring women, and we are honoring this work. So we want to center ourselves around just how great of a profession this is. All right, Mr. Aurelio, if we could have roll call.
Yeah, so Chair Trustee Smith-Folds.
Present.
Trustee Demetrio Gonzalez-Hoy.
Good evening, present.
All right, we're all here and accounted for.
All right, so this meeting will provide public comment opportunities through the Zoom app or by telephone to indicate your desire to speak on an agenda item. Oh, thank you so much. I went faster than that. Thank you so much. To desire to speak on an agenda item, raise your hand by clicking the appropriate icon in the Zoom app or by pressing *9 if accessing the meeting by phone. In order to be recognized to speak, you must be logged in with your first and last name, and your hand must be raised before public comment begins for each item. We will have public comment after each one of our discussion items. And we will also have public comment in our opening procedures. Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, if you wouldn't mind doing the Land Acknowledgement Act, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair Smith-Folds. We recognize that we are presently on the lands of the Chochenyo, Muwekma, Karken, Ohlone peoples and acknowledge them as the first inhabitants of the land we currently occupy.
Perfect, thank you. And we need to go to the approval of today's agenda. Are there any corrections to today's agenda? Anything you want to take out, anything?
No, thank you, Chair Smith-Folds. I would like to move to approve the agenda.
I second that. And I see absolutely no dissension. So we're gonna say that that's approved, great. Approval of the minutes. Let me just say in full disclosure, these minutes were great. They were done by Ms. Sherry. They're fantastic. Please do not expect this every time. We have given Ms. Sherry the ability to not do 8 pages worth of notes, but they are great. And we are recording these so anyone in the public can go back and look at it. And our notes can be, can capture what we're saying, but not to the letter of every word that we speak. But we want to thank her so very much for doing such a great job. Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, did you have a chance to look over the minutes?
I did, Chair Smith-Folds. To be honest, I usually leave minutes till the last minute, and I'm glad I didn't for the first time because of wonderful Sherry's minutes today. So I'm glad, and no, they were great. I would like to move the minutes for approval.
I second that. Seeing no points of dissension, I say that those minutes have passed. And Mr. Aurelio, is there any public comment on any items that are not on the agenda?
So this is the opportunity if attendees want to make a comment to raise their virtual hands. And at this moment, I don't see any hands raised.
All right, let's give them one more minute. We can just sit and look at each other for 1 minute.
So I think we can move on to our first discussion item.
Perfect. All right. And we are at discussion item A, multilingual education, dual language immersion, DLI, and the DLI timeline. Okay, it's on you.
Sorry, my kid opened my door behind me. So this evening we have, or afternoon, this afternoon, we have Director Christy Rosigno, who will be leading us through this presentation. This is an update. At the last academic committee, we did start, we presented around multilingual education in WCCUSD. So this is an update to that presentation. We've also invited one of our bilingual principals, Allison Everett, to support in this presentation. So you'll be hearing from both of them. And then of course, we will take questions from the 2 trustees and then open up to comment and then discussion. So Christy, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity this afternoon to be able to provide further update around multilingual education in our district, and looking forward to being able to provide more information and also, of course, field any questions that come up. We want to start just with a framing around what we believe in our district to be a shared understanding around being bilingual, being a superpower, and it being something that we are trying to support for our students who come to us as multilingual learners, who come with English as a second language, who are English language learners, and also for our students who don't have that experience and who might want to learn another language in order to be able to fulfill their greatest. So our agenda for this brief presentation is we're going to start with some of the goals of dual language instruction and then have some guiding principles and get a little bit into the research base. Then we'll go ahead and talk about some of the short-term goals for our programs and longer-term goals for our programs. In addition, we have some data in relation to our English language learners to share. We have a little bit of an update around reclassification, and then we will turn it over to any questions and answers that you or the community have. And we also will be adding in some framing around support we have for our current programs within distance learning, because distance learning is not easy for anyone and especially makes learning another language even harder. And I'm going to turn it over to Allison Everett, principal at Chavez Elementary School. She's going to be joining us this evening to talk a little bit about where multilingual education in WCCUSD is.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me and giving me an opportunity to share a little bit about DLI in our district. I want to just start with some of the programs that we have. So we have a one-way DLI program at West County Mandarin, and that's a program that where the instruction is in English, instruction in English and another language for non-speakers of that language. So the goal of that program is language proficiency, academic achievement in both of the languages, and a deeper cross-cultural understanding. Another program that we offer is two-way DLI program, and those are offered at Downer, Stewart, Washington, and Korematsu. And that program is integrated language learning and academic instruction for native speakers of English and native speakers of another language. And the goal of that program is to attain language proficiency, academic achievement in both languages, and cross-cultural understanding. The third program that we offer is a developmental DLI program. That's offered at Chavez, my site, Coronado, Dover, Ford, Grant, Lake, and Lincoln. And that's a language acquisition program for English language learners that provides instruction to students in both English and their native language, in this case, Spanish, for literacy and academic instruction. The program begins in either TK or kinder and continues with the goal of biliteracy through 6th grade. Students typically participate in developmental bilingual programs for 5 to 6 years or longer with the goal of bilingualism and biliteracy. And this is most of these sites are formerly TBE programs where the goal was just English proficiency rather than bilingualism. For students in all of these programs, they have the opportunity to earn a seal of biliteracy upon graduation of high school, which is a demonstration of proficiency in English and the second language.
Can I add just briefly, and I know you went ahead on the slide and that's fine, that those grade levels listed, it's really important to note that many of these programs are increasing a grade level next year because the developmental DLI programs were formerly the TBE. Those used to stop at 3rd grade. We've been growing those programs with the goal eventually to have K-6 at all those sites.
Thank you. And the goals of the dual language immersion program overall is achievement for students to perform at or above grade level in both languages, bilingualism and multilingualism, oral proficiency in both languages, biliteracy, so the ability to read and write in 2 or more languages, and global citizenship, so cross-cultural competence.
All right, thank you. I get the pleasure of talking with you a little bit about some of the guiding principles of dual language instruction. And I'm not going to read these strands to you, but these 7 strands or principles are what we're working towards with our DLI advisory group. These are some of the strands that underlie the work that we're doing and the goals we're working towards as a group. and something that we're going to continue to develop over the years. It certainly doesn't happen in a short amount of time, but these are what we're working towards, is having effectiveness in all of our programs for all of these 7 strands. And I wanted to also include some of the research base behind this. So for our dual immersion programs, we know that English-only students show significant gains in overall educational outcomes. I'm not going to read the whole research to you. However, I think that one of the takeaways for me from this is that around supporting students in not only their educational goals, but also in the cultural piece, which sometimes could be lacking when we had our program that ended at a certain grade. The idea is that our programs are supporting students throughout what they're doing in school. And then also wanting to note that we know that research also shows that students who might initially show a little bit of a lower rate of proficiency in the beginning because they're learning 2 languages, which is a lot, they are able to catch up or surpass achievement levels of EL peers. And so this is saying that our students who are English language learners who are in our DLI programs are well positioned to outperform students who are not in these programs simply because of the way in which their language is being built upon. It's not something that's subtractive, it's additive. And then as promised, I wanted to detail some of the current supports for DLI. One of the current things that we have in place is specified professional development that is really geared towards supporting our lowest grade elementary teachers who are teaching in a DLI setting to be able to try things out and to improve what they're doing within literacy instruction. We know that our work with Teachers College Reading Writing Project is somewhat relatively new to our district. And the idea of the specified professional development that our TK or K through 2 DLI teachers are able to take a part in is it's called a literacy lab. And so the teachers have hands-on practice. They get to see some exemplary literacy practices with our own students. And then they get practice doing it themselves with another group of students within the space of the professional development. These were put in place specifically to try to support our teachers who are working with our students at the youngest levels. Some of the supplementary resources that we have added for distance learning specifically are we have purchased a set of books from Capstone Interactive, and these Capstone books are available for all of our DLI sites for our students who are learning in Spanish and in English. And the books are meant to round out some of the other options that we have. Of course, we have other online collections for our students, but those are mostly in English. And these Capstone collections were specifically put together to supplement those so that it would be more equal for them. This also is easily available to our students and to our teachers because it's within Clever, which is the portal which they're used to going to. So it's not a lot of extra steps. And then the third support that I wanted to highlight this afternoon is that there is a PLC, a professional learning community, on literacy workshop for our 3rd through 6th grade DLI classes. And that is led by Emily Hill, who is our elementary literacy coordinator and also has the lived experience for years of teaching in a DLI setting, the Spanish side of the DLI instruction for years. And so that PLC is was put together in order to support the sharing of best practices and space for teachers to be able to work with one another to improve what they're doing within elementary literacy for their DLI students. And so those were the 3 current supports that we wanted to highlight for this evening, this afternoon, excuse me. And so now we are going to transition to having a little bit of time to provide information around some of the short-term goals and also the longer-term goals for DLI. Here you see a logo. It's always nice to have images, a logo for Stewart. And one of the things that we were wanting to provide, one of the short-term goals is around middle school classes for students at Stewart. And I'm going to turn this over to Ruben for just a moment.
Thank you. So one of the challenges we've been facing recently with Stewart Elementary is we do have a growing program where DLI has grown year to year. The highest grade level served in dual language right now is 6th grade. However, it's a small cohort of students. I want to say the numbers are at most 12 students now in the bilingual cohort that are left. And that structurally has really presented a challenge in sort of forecasting and building out these programs year to year. So we are going to make some recommendations to the board, to you two, as far as, and also the greater board around Stewart and how we can support Stewart as a school long-term and also short-term. One of the things we would like to propose is for the current 6th grade students that are DLI students who want to remain in receiving DLI instruction, we want to make them an offer potentially to move to the Korematsu DLI programming. Korematsu has 7th and 8th grade DLI programming. Currently, they service the students who come from Washington Elementary, but we'd like to be able to offer that as an option for those 10 to 12 Stewart families and students. That doesn't mean they have to take us up on our offer, and they might want to remain at Stewart, but we are going to be really challenged in providing a 7th grade DLI next year at that school, just structurally and how it's intended. The other thought that we'd want, our discussion point we want to share with you both, is just the long term for Stewart. Is this a school we'd like to start moving towards the wall-to-wall dual language immersion? And this slide here really points a picture. So the board took action to relocate West County Mandarin. West County Mandarin is going to be moving towards the Pinole area, and it really creates this nice vertical alignment with Pinole Middle School and Pinole High School around the Mandarin instruction. We also see that similar structure with Washington and Korematsu. I put TBD on the high school because as of right now, and I mentioned this at the previous academic committee, which is El Cerrito High, which held the DLI programming for secondary. Really, it's programming in name and not in reality at this point. We're not providing those services. So we do have to re-examine dual language for Spanish at the high school level and decide where the best place will be and what that program will look like long-term. So what we envision with Stewart potentially, that we would have a dual track almost for the Pinole area, that you have the option in Pinole to do West County Mandarin, Pinole Middle, Pinole High with a Mandarin track and an IB track, right, in the International Baccalaureate. And that we could potentially get to a point where Stewart offers a similar track with Spanish dual language and potentially IB. So that would be a long term. So then you have these two essential feeder schools moving towards Pinole High School with both language and International Baccalaureate. So that's long-term planning. Of course, we would expect direction from the board if that's the direction we want to go in, and of course, community involvement in that process as well, and listening to the community if that's what they truly want to see. I do want to add, one of the shifts we made in that area as well was to push to relocate one of the charter schools that existed in that neighborhood. Voices Charter would be moving out of that neighborhood. Voices Charter is a dual language program. So we do see this as an opportunity potentially to capture enrollment back into our schools and communities if we have that similar offering still in that area.
One other piece to add in relation to goals, when we already spoke a little bit about Korematsu and some of the students from Stewart potentially for next year going there for the middle school program. Also looking to strengthen and broaden the middle school program at Korematsu to shift it from what it currently is, where students who come from Washington, they have two Spanish classes, two classes that are taught in Spanish. And one of those is a Spanish elective, and then the other one is history, which is in Spanish. And actually to broaden it, to make it more of a true DLI program, to have two multi-subject teachers who have their dual language certification to be able to hold more content level instruction for those students. That's one of the other short-term goals we have. And of course, collaborated a little bit with Mr. Burnham in order to, before we move forward. The next piece of our presentation is going to be around data. And this data here shows how our ELs are doing, the STAR growth report. As you can see, that in fall and winter of 1920, if we looked at how our ELs were doing, we were looking at 65.7 at a higher typical growth rate. Over on the right, the chart that you see is showing fall to winter 2021. And so you can see here that we have a smaller percentage that is above and having that higher growth rate. We do, of course, want to put the data into context that any one measure is not going to give us everything, and all of the measures on the far right are done within distance learning. But wanted to be able to provide some of that data for you here this afternoon. And also wanting to share around reclassification and to show the percentage rates. So what you see within those two blue bars, the lighter blue bar is showing the percentage reclassification rate from 1920, and the darker blue one is showing from 2021. There are a lot of reasons behind this data. The rate dropped for several reasons. In short, one of them is that in 1920, it was the first year that the LPAC criteria went to level 4. Prior to that, it was level 3. So that alone led to less students reclassifying. Also, due to COVID-19, we did not administer a full round of the LPAC last year. And that made it so that we had a lot fewer students who were able to be meet that criteria. And then even the students that we did have that qualified from the prior year, the paperwork wasn't returned in a timely enough manner for us to be able to reclassify them, which is understandable given the circumstances at the time. And so this is just showing where the percentages are far lower than they usually are due to COVID-19.
Christy, do you happen to know, just historically, because I know this, the 1920 and 2021, the criteria changed. Prior to that criteria, roughly what our percentage was year to year in reclassification?
I wouldn't want to speak out of turn. I can, if you give me just a moment, I can, and I'm not sharing my screen, I'd be happy to pull that up. But I would say roughly it was in the 12 to 13% range, much higher than what this is.
Yeah, and I could speak to my previous district. We typically were around 12 to 15% for reclassification with the old criteria. So I know that definitely the criteria change impacted this tremendously.
And we are one additional piece around reclassification. With the board's approval of our use of the Elevation platform, we're very much looking forward to our reclassification processes being much more smooth. And that also can make it so that all of our students who are eligible will be much more likely to be able to receive that designation. And so we have provided space for any questions that you have.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, questions?
Thank you, Chair Smith-Foltz. I have 7 questions, if that's okay. I counted them to make sure I'm looking at the clock today. So my first question is the developmental bilingual program, BILI program. To what grade level are we at now? Obviously, TBE only went to 3rd grade. So what grade level are we at in all the schools?
We do have some 4th grades. Oh, sorry, Christy, you can jump in. I know we do have 4th grades at a number of schools. Most of the schools that had TBE that switched have 4th grades. There are schools that did not grow from 3rd to 4th based on just sheer numbers and timing of the year. But many of those schools do have 4th grade. So next year we would be going to 5th grade.
But the goal is for them to get all the way to 6th.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. By the way, I didn't thank you, Ms. Rosino and Ms. Everett, for the presentation. I apologize. I just went through to the questions. Thank you for being here. And I know that you both have children late at night, so I appreciate you being here. So next question is, since we're transitioning from TB to developmental DLI, and we have been for last year or so, or 2 years, what has the training been like for educators to make that transition? Because I know that it's tough to teach 10 years in one program and all of a sudden switching to another one. What's been the support there?
A couple of the support options were laid out in this training specific to what they're doing within the literacy curricula. And then prior to me being in this role and prior to COVID-19, there were also a series of trainings that were held specifically for the purpose you're mentioning and supporting teachers with some of the pedagogical shifts around going from a TBE to a DLI. Got it. And you mentioned the PLC is really more towards 3rd through 6th grade teachers. How are we supporting the K through 2nd? That's a great question. And I think that the PLC is something that could be stretched to the lower grades if that is the desire of the teachers for next year. But the reasoning on that was that the TK through 2 were the group of teachers that were able to be a part of the lab site professional development, which is also a form of PLC because it happens at 4 times across the school year and is a chance for teachers to not only learn in the space, but to try something and then to bring it back and to collaborate around it.
Thank you. So, this whole situation about Stewart and its future, what's the thought about, you mentioned, Mr. Aurelio, the next step after Korematsu for our dual immersion schools. What's the thought after Korematsu since we don't have space at El Cerrito? Is this something you want to talk about in the future, or is this something that you are already thinking about?
Well, one thing I want to correct, it's not necessarily space. Really, the limiting factor is credentialing and teachers. Because when you're looking at high school dual language immersion, you need single subject credentials. So imagine trying to find a physics teacher, but a physics teacher that can teach it in Spanish. And so that's the limiting factor, is really a staffing factor at that point. And that's been a challenge for El Cerrito High to find those types of teachers. So we would really want to start recruiting and looking at building a program. They're the unicorns in our system, right? How do we find those teachers who have both the right credentials and the level of language expertise to teach in those languages? So that's a big factor. I think long term, we need to decide where it makes the most sense to put a program like that. If you look at where our schools are located that offer bilingual programming, maybe El Cerrito is not the right location. You can see where the developmental DLI schools are located. A lot of those are in Richmond and San Pablo. And so it might make sense that we grow the programs there. So it's something that we would be building, a task force to look at that in the future, to make sure we can do that, and also partnering with human resources to make sure we can recruit the right kinds of teachers for those positions.
Thank you for that. My next question is more about the inclusion of families. I know last time we talked a little bit about specifically our African-American families, and how we've heard from parents, right, that they drop out over time, or there's just lack of African-American families that join the dual immersion track. Could you talk for a minute about what you're doing when it comes to the communication and the development of a plan to recruit African-American students and families to the program?
Well, I think I can start on the initial steps on that. We're to collaborate with our director of African-American Student Achievement, Mr. McGee, and we already did, we work together on a lot of things, and this is one of them. And he has already started to share some of the information within his newsletters around opportunities for families to enroll in the programs. In addition, something that I think is going to be, that's a long-term goal for us to continue to strengthen and do, and it's going to be something that within partnership with our principals at DLI schools to ensure that our DLI advisory committee is representative of all the families that are included in the program.
That makes sense. Thank you very much. And I saw Mr. McGee was also in the audience, so it's good to see him here as well. That partnership makes total sense. Anyways, I'm heading to comments, so I'm going to ask my next question. So when it came to the data, the data obviously was concerning to me, but not surprised due to the virus. Are we prioritizing English language learners for summer programming?
Yes, it's one of the factors that are going to be included in the list in the formula where students are qualified to be able to come back. In addition to having one of the points in the system be around being English language learners, there will be an additional point for students who are newcomers or long-term English language learners or potential long-term English language learners to increase their abilities or not their ability, excuse me, but the chances that they would be included.
And the point system is, we're building out a matrix in identifying our highest need students to be given the initial offer for summer programming. It's also a similar list that we'll be looking at for any potential spring reopening as well, and the priority list of students.
That's great. Thank you for that. Last two questions. Ms. Rosino, forgive me because I'm starting to forget this piece, but the lowering the criteria for classification, was that a local decision or was that a state decision?
It was a raised criteria and it was a state decision.
Got it. Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it became harder to reclassify, right? So they
Mhm.
increased the criteria.
Gotcha. Okay. And last time I talked about my concern about newcomers in our district and trying to develop not just the program that's happening at Grant School, but also the communication that it exists within employees and families that need to access it, right? Which is can be quite a bit. What are we doing when it comes to that newcomer program in order to share that, to share specifically what I just said, right? That it exists, that people can access it, that people can transfer to that and get priority transfer. Could you just mention that super quickly?
Christy, did you want to speak to that, or do you want me to add around?
If you can add to that one, please.
I think I know we've extended the transfer window. Priority transfer technically ended in February, but we have extended that for specific programs, one being the bilingual programming. So if families come in, we are going to treat them as priority for those systems. With the other piece of it is making sure our office staff at these schools that offer programming know that that is an option, that there are these programs available, and ensuring that they can direct families in the right way. So that'll be another layer to that. And I know Farnaz is in the audience too. So if we need her, we could always pull her in to talk
Right, we
about that
can.
program.
And one additional piece that long term is going to make this a little bit less of a hurdle as far as communication goes and programming for our newcomer families is we recently have posted for 3 central school community outreach workers of our most commonly spoke languages in order to really wrap around our newcomers. And those would be school community outreach workers that speak Spanish, Arabic, and Portuguese in order to, this will be one of the pieces that they're communicating to our families, but in order just overall to provide more support for those families.
That's great. Okay, thank you very
And
much.
actually, I want to add, Demetrio, sorry,
Yeah.
Steve Gonzalez-Hoy, that at Grant Elementary, we are actually adding to their TK program will be a bilingual TK next year. So we want to get them in early for that. They are going to be doing a bilingual TK at that school.
And that just made me think of another question. Last question, Chair Smith-Folds. Is Grant having an issue with spacing with the program? Like, does it cap off? And maybe that's one of the reasons why people are not transferring, because there's no space, or is it just purely maybe just that people don't know that it exists?
So I'm wondering if I should bring Principal Hidari in, because I don't want her to speak about her space. Hopefully she doesn't mind me pulling her into this
Yeah,
conversation.
Chair Smith-Folds, if you don't mind, I think it would be.
If she's willing, listen, I say bring everybody in the audience in. But if she's willing to come in and speak to it, I think that would be great.
So there's Principal Hidari. You can
Thank
unmute.
you.
So through the secretary grapevine, when newcomers are enrolling, if my nearby schools know that we have room in specific grade levels, they contact us and we try to do an internal transfer between principals and secretaries. That way we are addressing the needs of the newcomers. And I think when we hear the newcomer program, you're thinking maybe the newcomers in isolation with a teacher in some off corner in a school. That's not how we operate. The newcomer program teacher, Ms. Huidobro, who is a great find through the hiring process. She applied for the position, and she was actually the data analysis TOSA at Vallejo School District, and she had worked at Oakley. So she has a lot of background in assessments and analyzing data. So when we brought her on, we had specific questions because we had noticed that although students are enrolled in the TBE program, in time, even if they became fluent English learners, they were not achieving at the pace they were prior in the older grades, in the upper grades. So then we had them And that's how we came to have the newcomer program, because what we do is when we have students that have entered the country, we keep them in our newcomer program for 3 years. The general education teachers are providing the students with grade level curriculum. Then my prep teacher, when the children go through the prep program, instead of just sitting and, you know, practicing typing, we have purchased iExcel and several other site licenses that they, the prep teacher, Miss Brockhoff, and the newcomer teacher keep analyzing the data. So it's a comprehensive work that the grade level teams and prep teacher and newcomer teacher created in order to support students so that we have data at our hand. Yes, you know, star reading, star math is great. I'm not, but they're not always accurate. One thing that we purchased last year from our own site funds, which we could not keep for this year, was Ames Web. It's a one-on-one assessment, and we assessed every single student. It comes in English and it comes in Spanish. And through the Spanish process, we were able to assess even our newcomers who speak a different dialect of Spanish. So our data is meaningful to our program and our community. And unfortunately, there aren't enough hours in the day. So what ultimately happens is my newcomer teacher, out of the goodness of her heart, runs an after-school program. And she supports the newcomers even more. And if they have older siblings that are at our school, but they're not in our DLI program, or they're not, for whatever reason, are not achieving at a faster rate, they can participate in that. And we have created a connection between the after school program at our site, which is Love, Learn, Success, and our newcomer program. So parents can feel comfortable in having after school program care, knowing that when their child is done with Miss Widobro, they can go to the after school program and also have enrichment. So everything is not just convoluted around, oh, you must become fluent English learner, you have to lose out on enrichment as well. So that's something that we've been conscientious about. We have a great team that works collaboratively, and COVID has thrown a wrench in our programming, because a lot of our newcomer families are experiencing more serious consequences from COVID than any other community that we have at our school. I don't know if I answered your questions, but the newcomer program has allowed children who have been in the country only 3 years to reclassify. And since we have brought on the newcomer program, which this is the 4th year of, we were reclassifying more students, because I think the highest number we went up to was 54, and that was a year ago. Last year, for this year, we did not reclassify anyone because LPAC testing had not been completed at our school site.
Thank you, Principal Hidari.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for just coming in and just like this. I really appreciate it. So if I understand it correctly, the newcomer program is all the way, it's 3 years. What happens to them after that? They go into the developmental bilingual program?
So many of our newcomers haven't had schooling in their home country. So it's really important that we educate our office teams, as well as anybody who is enrolling them in the district, to know whether it's a sound objective to have the students enter the bilingual programs that we offer. Because if they're already in the 3rd grade and they haven't had any schooling in their native tongue, it would be best to have them, you know, enroll in our SEI classes with the sheltered English, and also put in the supports. Last year, I was able to hire 2 fully bilingual instructional assistants who were supporting my learning center. We have a very comprehensive care process, which we look at students academically and social emotionally. And we refer our students to the learning center. So what those instructional aides were doing for the students that were in the SEI classes, they were supporting them not only in Spanish, literacy, but also in English literacy. But then it takes a tremendous amount of funding. And when there's I've learned the term soft funding, we cannot keep them. And unfortunately, I lost one of the instructional assistants. He just left our district, and the other one we turned over to our special education department so that she could become a paraprofessional supporting an English only student. So manpower and professional development for classified and certificated employees, that has been a non-negotiable grant for the last 6 years. So that's how we've become so strong in our programming. We have really zeroed in on what our stakeholders want, what our teachers feel they need to implement in their classrooms. And of course, with the funding, we try to provide them with any instructional materials or the human resources to support those programs. So we need money.
Yeah, hear you loud and clear. Thank you for that. I appreciate the candor on that piece. Chair Smith-Folds, that was my last question. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so very much. And thank you for coming in and speaking with us. Thank you for adding that clarity around your school and your programming. I do have a couple of questions. What supports do we as a district offer for parents who speak like a high variety of different languages? Like I know we have supports for parents. This is outside of the DLI. I'm just asking a general question. Like what supports do we have for parents who speak a multitude of different languages? Do we have those supports in the district?
So,
for example, if I come in and I'm brand new to the district and my primary language is French, right? I speak French fluently. I speak very little English, but I want to participate in schooling and participate in my child's schooling. What supports do we have for that adult, that parent that comes in?
Christy, do you want to speak towards sort of the RAP Center and the
Sure,
services
I'd be
they
happy
provide?
to. So within my department, we have a team who is designated exactly to what you're mentioning around providing native language support for families in relation to anything for school. We do have a process in place where anyone at any of our school sites, whether that be a teacher, an administrator, anyone, can request any type of interpretation for any type of meeting or any type of translation of any document that they want to send home. That's one of the things that we currently have in place that's held within my office, and we are always looking to expand upon it and make it better. However, it is in relation to other local districts that I know, it is a more robust program than a lot of other multilingual districts.
Is there a formula or a ratio to where if you have a certain number of your students or student population that speaks a certain language, then it's papers are automatically translated into that language? Does that make sense what I'm asking? So like do we have a formula for that? How do you figure out, okay, I need to send this district document in Mandarin, also in Spanish, also in Swahili, also in French? Like, how do we figure that out?
Christy, are you aware of the rule? Or?
So the state does lay out the percentages that are supposed to be of a dominant language that would necessitate what you're mentioning, a site sending out documents for translation. But I'll also say that principals are really well aware of who is in their school and the languages that are being spoken. And so I don't know of a lot of situations of principals who are not aware of that and where the percentage has been an issue.
Okay. And they have the principals, they are aware, and they also have the position of power to say, okay, I need to get these resources to this parent or this group of parents because this is necessary for them to feel the inclusion that I want my site to offer. They have that, they know how to do that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you brought up the slide with one way, two way, and developmental bilingual. Okay. My kid was asking me for a snack when you were going over it. So I caught a lot of it, but I do have a question. So the one-way track is, for example, the Mandarin school. And then the two-way track, that would be like Washington Elementary School, where you have a group of kids that are going in for Spanish, and then you have a group of kids that are going in for English. The developmental bilingual, are all the kids just going in under Spanish? Tell me, can you explain the difference between developmental bilingual and I guess the one-way track?
Do you want to take it, Allison, because you presented on this, or I can? Up to you.
I can start and then you can fill in any gaps.
Sounds good.
Developmental bilingual mostly serves English language learners. So students are coming in with varying degrees of English and, in our case, Spanish. Whereas the two-way program, Christy can talk to that one because that's not my program.
So when you're dealing with the developmental bilingual, are you only dealing with your ELL population? Are you only, you're not just dealing with kids coming in speaking Spanish primarily, but you're dealing with different students, correct? Or is it just primarily Spanish speaking students?
Spanish and English, and some varying degree. Every kid's different, varying degrees of each of those languages. But for example, like a student who's French and English, they would not, the program is not designed for them.
Do we have a program for them?
So the two-way dual language is open to all students. Like at Mandarin, I know that you get kids who speak multiple languages, 3 languages. So you can select into the two-way dual language immersion program, even if your language is not Spanish.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really intended to be the two-way dual language is really intended to be a choice program, right?
Mhm.
It's something that you want to choose into, and really there's tremendous benefits in doing that.
But our developmental bilingual is just that. It's intended to make sure that those kids who are developing those skills are able to have a program that's laser focused on them, to give them that kind of gap filling to be able to get them to the next step. Is that the best way to kind of think about it?
I think so, yes, to support them to be biliterate. So it's the gap filling and also the continuation of their development in their native language. So it's really both.
Do the developmental bilingual children, do they ever jump out of developmental bilingual and into two-way?
I have not heard of that happening. But it could, but I have not heard of that happening.
Okay. And then on your strands, you had 7 strands. What strand do you believe needs the most growth, and how do you foresee that happening? Like, which one are you looking at that you're concentrating on that needs the most growth?
That's a great question. I think that the strand, if you were to, like right now, the one that we need the most support with is the staff quality and professional development. As Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy had brought up, that there's a tremendous amount of growth that needs to happen to transition from being going in one model to going in another model. And educators who are working within in all of our dual language programs are tremendously committed, and it is a lot more work. So to me, that speaks to the amount of support that we need to layer on for that.
Okay. And then my question before I get to, I think I have about 2 for Stuart, but my question is, how do we add exposure to all students, all of our students with multiple languages, dual language, like counting to 10 in multiple languages is a benefit for every student. Like if you can count to 10 in French and in Spanish, and it's a benefit for every student. If you can do colors in multiple language, it's a benefit for every student. If you can do, have sight words in every language, that's a benefit for every student. And when I say every language, the top 5, you know what I mean? Like the top 5 that are spoken all around the world, because it also helps with that increased curiosity. Like if we can lay a foundation to where we're creating curiosity around language and global citizenship, I think we're knocking off a couple of those strands you said that dual immersion focuses on. So for me, I would love to see us find a way to incorporate languages at all levels, especially at the elementary school level. But let's not forget about the middle school level too, because they're going to do class choices to where they go and they figure out which language they want to take in high school. Because we require them to take, A-to-G requirements require them to take some language. So the exposure to having it before they pick out that choice sheet in 8th grade would be the best, like exposure to some language. I think I told this story before. I spoke French because the person who came and told us about French said it's the language of love, and every girl took it because we're high school. We didn't know. We were like, oh, language of love, let's take it. And, yes, I can speak it, but maybe I should have taken Spanish. Okay, so that's what, again, exposure and experience for all of our students, I think breaks down those barriers and it increases their curiosity around language. And I think that's really what dual language and global citizenship looks like, is just to increase that curiosity and give them the resources. So my
Trustee
question is
Smith
about,
Foltz, I would say, because I think you had a question at first there, and I'm going to say that I would love to see language being taught at every school, or even bilingual education at every school. Obviously, we're not there yet, but I think it's a benefit for every kid to speak multiple languages.
I agree. And yeah, I did have that question, but I fluffed it with a whole bunch of comments in there, but I agree. I really do agree that exposure to language should be at every school and at every level. When we're talking about Steward, and I think that's going to have to be a separate agendized item, because that's a big lift that we're going to, and I do have some questions about that. But right now, have we reached out to those 10 to 12 families yet?
So I don't know if we've specifically reached out to them directly about the Korematsu offer yet.
Okay.
That is something that, if that's the direction we think we can go, I think it's safe to say we can offer that as a transfer and a priority transfer. Really, the decision for us, the pressing decision is what we're going to do for seventh grade next year.
Right.
Because are we going to try to have a teacher for 10 students, and that we know is challenging, and trying to figure that out. Long term, for Steward as a school, we probably have a little more time to figure that out. As I would love to have a decision this school year going into next year, but if we had to wait a little, we potentially could wait a little to do that. Definitely need to figure out 7th grade though.
Okay. And then you were talking about El Cerrito. It was a staffing issue because you're looking for teachers that hold that single credential but are able to do it with bilingual, like who are able to teach physics in Spanish. And right now you have a teacher that can teach history in Spanish. Is that what I heard?
That teacher I don't know if that teacher is there anymore. The history.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant Korematsu, not at the high school. No.
No, we're talking about El Cerrito High.
Okay.
Right.
So that's the staffing issue we're looking to fill, is at the high school level.
Correct. The Korematsu is, we want to strengthen that program, and the way we view that is because you can go multiple subject at middle school, and we can find bilingual multiple subject teachers. It's a lot easier to find them, obviously, for that reason, and we can really do some coring of students, cohorting them essentially with that program.
Okay, and then the last one, and really quickly, can you tell me just in summary the reclassification process? And if you say it can't be done quickly, okay, I'll ask it again at another time. But what's the summarized version of the reclassification process?
I will try.
Christy,
go
let
ahead.
me also jump into, we could actually add that to a Friday memo as well,
Okay.
like upload, because I know the board recently approved, and I'm trying to remember if it was this version of the board or the previous version of the board, but it was recently.
It was this version.
Okay, so you guys did approve the process already, which is great. But we can add it to a Friday memo, so it's there for you to review again if you prefer.
Okay. Actually, that would probably be great because it goes out to the greater community if it's in a Friday memo to the reclassification process. And I'll save that for discussion. Okay, so those are all of my questions. Do we have any public comment?
All right, so we're looking for hands on the bilingual education or this topic. You want to give us, I think most of the hands are going to come up are going to be the next topic. So I don't see any public comment at this time.
Okay, great. Discussion, Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy?
Thank you, Chair Smith-Foltz. I know that we have a lot of people waiting for the next one, so I'll ask them as quickly as I can. I have 4 comments. First one is on the Steward thing. I actually really like your idea, Chair Smith-Foltz, about potentially maybe putting the Steward specifically in yet in another agenda. I know that's what tonight was kind of supposed to be, and now we have 2 big items. So I do think that we want to talk about it a little bit more. Maybe invite the Steward PTA and maybe talk to folks. To be completely frank, I have not spoken to a single person in Steward, so I would also like to get their input a little bit. I do have questions about transportation, and if parents. I loved your question about have we surveyed parents? Maybe we want to talk to them about how they feel about transfer to Korematsu. I'm still really concerned about the long-term real issue about what happens after Korematsu, as you all mentioned. I would maybe love to see it at the ANSA to continue to expand some of our other high schools, since every high school is starting to get kind of like a different path and priority, I would love to see it there since it's more central. And I know Richmond High has international programs and Pinole Valley has the IB program. And that kind of goes tied to the piece about the IB program at Pinole Valley and being offered to the Mandarin program. I'm a little concerned that we're potentially creating an inequity that we're only providing the IB track to one bilingual program and one language, which I'm not saying that Mandarin schools shouldn't get it. I'm actually really excited that that's kind of heading that direction, but how can we provide it to the Spanish dual immersion as well, so they have access to this amazing program? So food for thought for our next conversation on that piece. And then, another food for thought for Mr. Aurelio, Ms. Rosino, how we potentially consider Stewart to Crespi to the ENSA if that's the trajectory. Just another thought, since we're also trying to grow Crespi and that pathway, since the charter schools leaving Crespi, maybe that's another idea. And then my last comment, this whole situation about grant. One, I would love to see obviously more resources for our newcomer program. I completely agree with Mr. Dari on that. And maybe that's a conversation we can have with the budget committee and Dr. Wold, because I do think that they need a little more support. But I am challenged that I do hear constantly from sites, right? And I even see it, like I mentioned the example of my wife last year taught 2 newcomers in her class without her speaking the language, right? And I hear it with like so many people. I think that it was you, Ms. Racino, who said it's a little more of education for front office staff to let them know this exists and they can transfer them. I think that we have to do something there, whether it's a memo or just continuous communication. I'm sure you already have done memos and emails. What could we do, right, to continue to share this program exists, maybe continue to expand it, and then also more resources can be given to grant to continue to do that, right? And I would love to do something to thank and appreciate the newcomer teacher there later. That's for later, but maybe we can invite her to a board meeting to thank her or something. Anyways, just to put it out there. That was my last comment, Chair Smith-Folds. Thank you, everybody, for this conversation.
Thank you, Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy. I think my comments are, I want to make sure that, and I want to probably agendize this, but I really want to look at the Black experience in dual immersion. Like, I think it's something that we need to agendize and really have a deep dive into the Black experience in dual immersion. That's the first thing. Afro-Latinas and Black people who speak Spanish, they're not unicorns. They're not. Like, we need to make sure that we understand that and intentionally look for that and highlight that in our programs, highlight that in our messaging, highlight that in the books that are being taught in the classrooms, like really make this as an inclusive program, because it's not. I also want to, and Mr. Aurelio, Mr. McGee said you can bring him in to talk to this. He just texted me. So if you could bring him in, that would be great, because then it could, because we're speaking to this right now. Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, are you okay with that for about 5 minutes?
Totally fine. I just want to make sure that, we have enough time for all the public comment for the next one. But yeah, and I would love to, I would agree with you, or maybe agendizing that specific topic too for another meeting. I would love to hear more about plans on that piece. Anyways, yes, of course.
And Trustee Smith-Folds, I will volunteer to go to the Caribbean to recruit teachers anytime.
I think that, I will join you with that. I think that we need to make sure that we are focusing on it. So I'm going to lend my time. I'm going to yield my time to Mr. McGee. And Mr. McGee, if you could come in and just tell us what's happening with what you know to be true about the Black experience with dual immersion, what you want to see happen, anything to that, we would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Good evening, you guys. And I'm going to be right on the plane with you. Ruben's going to fly it. But so real quick, I think that as Ms. Rosigno mentioned, there is some great outreach being done. The Mandarin School has done some great stuff, as well as our other principals asked about advertising. And so we did that. What does need to be strengthened, though, is just the support for the Black children when they get there. And so that's something we're trying to do through the SPSA development, the Single Plan for Student Achievement. And I will say that 2 of our schools, through conversation with OASA, are actually rerouting some of their funds to support their Black children through additional tutoring in that second language. And so that's the conversation that I think needs to be had. And our schools are really embracing that, because that is where our families are struggling, you all. And I again, like I said, hats off to Ms. Rosigno for really trying to create that, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say advertising, but that acknowledgement and recognition. And that's where I think a lot of our families are struggling. And I know that I'll forward some information to Christy just about that need, because there are a couple of schools where they do feel that there's some concerns and they're being overlooked. So no, I appreciate you guys in this conversation.
Thank you so much, Mr. McGee. So I think that, Mr. Aurelio, what we're hearing is we need to also set out time to have that conversation specifically. We need to set out time to have the conversation about Stewart specifically. We need to set out some time to have a conversation about Grant. So there's 3 conversations that just came from this one presentation. And I think that's great, because this is what the academic committee is. We're supposed to take these deep dives. I want to move on. If we don't have any other questions, comments, or concerns, let's move on to our second item, which is teacher recruitment cycle.
Okay, and I see that Marcy Williams and Dr. Greenwood are with us, and they're going to be presenting. Marcy, are you presenting your screen? You have the
Yes.
slide deck? Okay, so you should be able to do that.
All right, thank you. And thank you for having us here. Let's see if I can find it. All right, do you see that okay? All right. All right, so we're here to talk about recruitment. Dr. Greenwood and I are going to switch off a little bit, and I will get started. The first step in this recruitment cycle is anticipating vacancies. So we have our potential retirements, our upcoming, potential resignations. We have class size. We have new staffing allocations that may change up or down. And then of course, historical information that can give us an idea of where we're going. So the next slides 3 through 8 are really just talking about our retirement. And I'll go through that fast because I know there's a lot of information to get through. But we look at, the age range and our potential retirees in each area, elementary, secondary, special ed, and other. So kind of do an analysis. Again, this is 65 through 69, 60 to 64, and then 50 to 59. So we kind of look at that to see where we're at. And then our total age range. So we get an idea from that. I'm going to have Dr. Greenwood kind of talk about elementary class sizes and the class sizes, but they change and they can change what our allocations look like.
So we take a look at the class sizes every year based on the contract or MOUs, and you can see from every year based on elementary or secondary class sizes that has a range on and takes place with our recruitment. What we look at based on those class sizes, they can adjust as well. And then for TFA and international, I'm sorry.
Oops, that was me, sorry.
And so then we look at our resignation and retirement. So last year we did a bonus incentive to get people to notify us early that they were going to retire. So as of February 28th last year, we had 76 people to notify us that they were retiring. And as of this year, with not having an incentive, we had only 10 people notify us, and it's probably up to 12 right now because I've gotten a few more in. So you can see the big difference when we have an incentive to get us to kind of notify. And so we can better recruit when we have a better idea of how many openings there really are.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. We obviously have more of a pool to pull from when we are recruiting at job fairs, when we know earlier on. As it gets closer to May and June, and even after the deadline in June 30th, it makes it much more difficult. So it really is important to know that information as soon as possible and can affect how the teachers that we recruit. So based on the historical information, and Dr. Greenwood can jump into, we look at what our trend is with the information for the past several years, and then we project based on all of that information. So right now we're looking at approximately 200, but I will say with COVID, we're really not sure. We don't know if people will take, are still wondering what's going to happen and will not know. So this year, we can estimate as best as possible around 200. And then this is what the projection breakdown looks like in our areas that we will recruit for.
These are total estimations.
Yep.
But these are traditionally kind of the averages in each area, what we hire.
All right, so just wanted to give you some background about what the race and ethnicity of our school district, our current teachers. I have our teachers on our left and then our other certificated staff providers. So this is all of UTR. At the bottom, we have about 5% that are not reporting and about out of 1,540 employees. And then we will be able to kind of look at our other recruitment methods. So what does our recruitment efforts look like? Right now we're doing virtual job fairs, but obviously job fairs in person, we would go to a lot of those. We do postings. We do postings on EdJoin as well as selected colleges. Advertising, both websites, flyers, social media, and college boards. Word of mouth and referrals is always a great method, networking. We're going to talk about our teacher residency program that we grow our own certificate staff, and then how Teach for America assists in our recruitment work. And then just mention a little bit on our classified certificated grant program. So Sylvia, I'll have you go over the job fair.
And so this is where we have attended virtual job fairs so far. And then we have the listing of the upcoming job fairs that we have coming up. And the reason we didn't list where we're going, because we don't want people to know where we're going, because other districts have become public. They'll copy us and follow us because we're so popular. No, but really, you don't see Jamaica on there or the Caribbean, because I would be the first one going, me and Thomas, because we do the hard work. But I just want to get you guys to really understand, when we normally go off and travel, we carry suitcases full of our district swag. We have our gear on. And so we're really ready to recruit hard. So this has really been adjustment for our department to recruit virtually, because just like this Zoom meeting, this is how it is when we're recruiting. People have to jump into the Zoom. So I'm used to standing there like, hey, welcome to West Contra Costa. I have the map. I have our flyers, I have our swag to give out. So this is a very different setting for us. And so when people have to sign up to come in the room, I can't just talk to people live. So this has been very different. So we're limited in who comes into our room. If they don't really know about us, it's harder to get them to kind of see who we really are as a district and really promote who we are. So this is a really big change for us. I just want to get you guys to understand how different it is for us, and virtual is like killing us. So,
but they're definitely attending as many virtual job fairs as possible. So we're doing that work. Again, I'm gonna have Sylvia kind of talk about.
And so we are partnering with Mr. McGee, and Thomas was doing this prior with Miss Rushing and her team. And so while he would go on the trips with the young scholars, he would go to some of these HBCs. And so while he was doing dual duty, he would be with them and passing out flyers and promoting the district and trying to get students of color to come back and teach for us. The biggest barrier for us, and I've said it multiple times, is the cost of living is too high for most of these kids to come back and live, unless they really are from here and know about California or have family members here, that have a connection. It's just extremely hard for them to come back here and work and live. And so the cost of living is just too much. And so the intent is that they would love to come back, but we just can't pull them as much as we would like to. And that's always been my goal since I've gotten this position, to attract students of color to come back and teach us. And we have traveled pretty much, I want to say all over the country, but most of the country, trying to get people to come here. And it's just extremely just not a California issue, it's a United States issue. And that people are not going into the profession, and it's just really extremely hard to recruit, period. And then also to get, because now, especially with the pandemic, people are not willing to move. So that's going to be another issue that's going to plague us. So people are really kind of staying close to home or close to their university that they're at school at. So they're not willing to to move far. And so that's another issue that's going to plague us this year.
All right, so we're going to draw to the next topic, and another area that we use for recruitment, which is the teacher residency program. And this is a combination of graduate level coursework at a university with a full year of student teaching. And this is something we partnered with the CTC. We're in our 3rd year, I believe, and with special ed. So we are basically growing our own teachers and through this program. So there's a lot of information on here, but just to kind of give you an overview. So they earn a mild, moderate, or extensive support needs credentials. They make a commitment to teach the district for 4 years after the completion of the program. They work under the supervision of a mentor teacher, and that mentor teacher gets a stipend. And then they're also working as a paraprofessional, so they're part-time as well. We pay for the costs of the program, the stipends to cover expenses, and then reimbursement for CBEST, et cetera. So we have year 1 was a cohort of 2, year 2 was a cohort of 11, and this year we're looking to recruit 15, which is the max for the program. All candidates are from WCCUSD or nearby communities, and 10 of the 13 residents are district paraprofessionals. And then there's the breakdown. We have 15% are male and 85% female. And then here's the comparison of the current residency program compared to our current WCCUS teachers. 46 are Spanish bilingual, and 1 is fluent in American Sign Language. So we're excited for this program and think that, you know, we can definitely move forward with this, and if we can, with the CTC. Here's the information about the TFA. It's another component of our recruitment toolbox. It's not the only one. We've been in partnership with them since 2006 for 15 years. We have close to 100 alumni in WCCUSD schools, 19 in school leadership and 3 in central office leadership. We've had, since 2011, we've had 7 teachers be Teacher of the Year. We have 51 TFA alumni serving at WCCUSD, teachers with 3 to 5 years of experience, and then 36 with 5-year plus of experience. And then out of those 36, 18 are administrative roles and 13 have more than 10 years of experience. So here is the race ethnicity comparison. Again, our current WCCUS teachers with the TFA alumni that we have. Nearly 50% of TFA recruits are teachers of color, 25% come from low-income backgrounds, and nearly 33 are first in their families to graduate. TFA contributions, diverse pipeline. This year in the cohort, they have 74% teachers of color, 42 identify as low income, 39 first in their family to attend college, and 52 are from California. They know the cost of living. The other thing that's important is that their national recruitment team recruits from over 200 colleges. We don't have the bandwidth to go to 200 colleges. I'd love to, but we just don't have the capacity to do that, to go recruit. They provide support for teachers of color and educators from low income and then navigate the credentialing and onboarding process. And TFA members receive a combination of instructional as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion training. And this year they've had assistance with COVID, mentors to assist during the pandemic. Recruitment and retention strategies. This is something that, and I'm going to have Dr. Greenwood talk about this in terms of what she has seen in the fairs and recruitment.
One of our drawing cards is when we out recruiting that, you know, they ask what can we do to support them? And one of our major stars in our crowns is our TIP program, as our teacher induction program. So we support our teachers for the first 2 years and we pay for that. And so most districts do not offer that as a plus. And so this is something that we really use to attract our teachers. And so they know that they get this. And so I send them directly to Kristen's website. And so it spells it all out. And so they really buy into that. They know that they have the support for 2 years. And so what I put together is what I found out, you know, being on the road and recruiting, is these are some of the suggested bonuses that come from other districts. So some districts offer a $1,500 signing bonus, other offer a $1,500 paid mentorship for new teachers only the first year. Others have had 2,000 recruitment and retention bonuses, $2,000 to assist with their clear credential. Others have given a $5,000 bonus for a SPED, math, or science credentials cleared. And then others have benefit packages, 90-10% benefit package.
So this is what we're up against when we go out to the recruitment. So these are just some ideas that may help with the recruitment process. And then just our overall promoting WCCUSD. You know, we did, I think Dr. Greenwood, you said we saw a lot more candidates with our new salary schedule. We have 5 full weeks of break. We value experience. We take up to 15 years of experience. And obviously it's a great place to live, even though it's expensive. So, and I think that's it. So.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much for the presentation. And thank you for the hard work you do with recruiting teachers. Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, questions? And I'm sorry, Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, if there are people who want to make public comment, go ahead and start putting your hands up now while we do the questions. That would be great, so we can know. Oh, look, they're already started. Oh, good, googly goo. Okay, Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, questions?
Thank you, Chair Smith-Folds. First of all, thank you both for being here and everything you do. Secondly, wow, you ran through that presentation, so thank you. Appreciate it. I know we're all time constrained today. So I do have a few questions. So first one is, you know, I did see, obviously, the breakdown of ethnicity was really good to see. I haven't seen that before, actually, so I really appreciated that. What would you say are some of the biggest barriers from us recruiting more people of color? I know you kind of mentioned some of them, but the biggest barriers, in your opinion, of why we haven't seen more. Even though my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that we actually have a higher percentage than most districts around us, but what are some barriers that you're still seeing?
I think partially some of the exams as well. Like, you know, the last one that, you know, the state implemented, the EdTPA, is a very hard one to pass. And then when the pandemic hit, it created another barrier because that's an exam or that you have to do, you know, in front of a class and record yourself. And then you have to write, you know, this long, you know, explanation of how you did in front of the class. And so a lot of people, because of how from what candidates have told me, how the class is taught, it didn't translate to the exam. And so I've had some people within through the TIP program and some other people that have become familiar that teach at the university level help assist, kind of tutor these people, even that they're working with us right now, kind of get through that exam. So I know that exam is going to long-term be a problem for candidates to complete their credentials, so they can work on temporary credentials until we can get them all the way clear. So that's going to be an up and coming barrier for a lot of people, on top of the exams that they already have to pass.
That makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. So you mentioned the incentive for notification of retirement or resignation. I'm really concerned, obviously, that we haven't heard from most people. I think that probably a lot of them are waiting to see what the model is going to be next year, right? But you know, I am concerned so that you all can start, you know, recruiting as soon as possible. Would it be helpful if we were to do it again? Even if it's a little bit later than what it was last year?
I mean, we've only done it once, but I mean, I can see just the difference it made. And I think we've talked about it, and I think it may be helpful, right?
Yes.
Because we know that people move, we know that people, you know, decide to leave, retire, regardless of the pandemic. So yes, I think that there is, you know, a possibility that it would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you for that. Third question is, have we considered expanding but doing an education, maybe this is more for Mr. Aurelio, an education academy so that we can develop our own teachers. I love residency program, first of all. That's amazing. But like one that actually goes even before that, where we're actually sharing with our students a track to become teachers.
I know that there's been discussions around an education academy tied to El Cerrito High in the past, and that's something we'll have to revisit. I don't think Dr. Huey's on the line right now. I would pull her in and ask her directly, but I can get information back to you both about that and see where we're at with the pathways.
Thank you. Maybe that'd be a great conversation for another meeting, actually. Thank you. I see Chair Smith saying yes, thank you. My next question is, actually, this is my comment. The TFA contract, Ms. Williams and Ms. Greenwood, Dr. Greenwood, in your opinion, do you feel like it is absolutely needed for next year due to what you're seeing out there in your recruitment?
I would say yes, because again, we don't rely completely on TFA. It is something that assists us, and we don't have the capacity to go to 200 different, job fairs or colleges to do that. The nice thing about the contract is that it's up to, we're not required to hire that many, and all of them go, all of them are interviewed at the sites, and the sites choose them. And so it is, again, not a requirement, but it just gives us another option for hiring. Last year, for example, after the RIFs, and when we did the hiring, we needed their assistance at the very end in April, May. And so having them help us, was definitely needed. So.
Okay, thank you for that. And my last question about that is, do you see a higher retention of TFA core members, as they're called, in our district than other districts? Or is it lower, or maybe you wouldn't know that?
So I did try to pull retention information, and to be honest, the data, it wasn't clear how it was being pulled. We have it, but I wasn't clear how it's being pulled. And so we needed to do a more of a deep dive on that to make a really correct comparison. So I didn't want to bring that data, but we do have it, and I do want to sift through it, and we can provide that later through a Friday memo. But we do think it's important to look at that.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much. Chair Smith-Folds, that was my last question.
Thank you so much, Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy. Do we have a referral process? Like if I got a homeboy that I know would be a good teacher, and then I refer him, and then you hire him, do we have that type of process? I ask because my husband has that process in his job. If he knows an animator and he refers that animator gets hired, my husband gets a bonus. Like, you know what I mean? Like, do we have a process like that? Because a lot of us teachers know teachers. We do. Mm-hmm. Teachers know teachers, and teachers have cousins that were teachers. And so if we could start some kind of network like that, I think it would be beneficial, because there's Facebook pages. There's 1,000 Facebook pages for teachers, and we all know each other, or we're on Facebook friends with each other, and be like, yo, they're hiring in West Contra Costa. And then you could have that kind of referral or conversation. I did like Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy's question about the barrier. Is TIP, is that like the old VISTA program, or is it different?
Yes, that's exactly.
VISTA, so I was
Me too.
So that makes sense. And then the TFA contract, how many years is that TFF contract? Is it 1 year? Is it annual? Is it an annual renewal, or?
It's 3.
So they're up for 3 more years now.
Right. But again, we're not looking at the max number. That's just the possibility. We don't have to hire all 40 of them.
But we still have to pay, even if we don't hire them. It's not based on.
No, only those that we hire. We only pay an amount for those that we hire. So if we only hire 10, we're only paying for 10.
Okay, so with the contract with TFA, you're only paying for the candidates that you hire from that program.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the max number of people that you're thinking that you would hire this year would be?
So 40 is the max for 2 years. So 20 and 20. So
okay.
Again, we're not looking at 40 per year. We're looking at 20 per year, because we pay for them to be mentored the first and second year.
And how much of a Burger King is TFA? How much can I have it my way? Can I say I want this X number of men? Can I say I want this X number of Black teachers? Can I say I want this X number that speak Spanish? Can I say, is that something that TFA offers?
And yes, and the earlier the better, because again, though that their cohort that they're finding and getting ready, they are going to be, you know, hired at a different school district, whatever, if we're not in that process early on.
And Dr. Greenwood, do you believe that this would be the best move to make this year?
What, for TFA?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's a value at the end for us. Once we go through and try to get people that want to really come here, and then once we fill positions through the transfer process, TFA helps us fill those hard to fill positions at the end, because we know that they'll have their credentials or on their way to have their credentials. So it kind of supplements us at the end, and so that we're not scrambling.
Okay, I thank you for that. I want to get to, I want to make sure that we have time for the public to have their public comment. And then Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, we can real quickly swoop back around for discussion. Thank you so much, Ms. Williams. Thank you so much, Dr. Greenwood. If you guys can hang on just if there's something that pops up.
Sure.
And Mr. Raylio, we're good to go for public comment.
Okay, so I see 10 hands. We're gonna do 2 minutes per public comment. I think Sherry's gonna bring up the clock. We're gonna start with Carlo Juntia. Oh, and my screen just jumped. Bear with me. Carlo, you can unmute and begin your comment.
Hi, good afternoon, y'all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Good afternoon again. My name is Carlo Juntia, and I've been working in the district for nearly 3 years now. I became an educator because of my own experiences and frustration with educational inequities, and I joined Teach for America because of its commitment to centering diversity, equity, and inclusion to its mission, and the intentional leadership development it provided for us core members. With the help of my TFA coach and my cohort of other like-minded and committed teachers, I seriously felt prepared to take on the challenge of teaching at Richmond High, where I took on the responsibility of teaching advanced placement history in addition to my regular course load that totaled 3 preps during my first year of teaching. And I wouldn't have been able to overcome that challenge if it wasn't for my collaborative support that I received from Teach for America and my own school site. And it was because of the support that I was able to increase academic performance in my students' AP scores, and ultimately expand the program, the AP program, at my school for the following year, to give more students a chance to take rigorous coursework that prepared them for college after high school. So less than 3 years later, I'm really humbled to be recognized by EdFund for teaching excellence, and I directly contribute that to the training and collaborative support that I received from Teach for America and my school site. And that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlo. Next is Farnaz Hidari. You can unmute and begin your comment.
Good evening once again. I am the proud principal of Grant Elementary School. This evening, I'm here to support the renewal of the MOU with Teach for America. I've appreciated partnership with them for the last 6 years. Through their pool of dedicated and diverse educators, I've been able to staff my school with the best candidates possible that make a difference for my kids each and every day. When our students walk on campus, they're able to see themselves represented by our staff. The vast experiences that our core members have had are a window of possibilities for our students. The core members have a strong background in leadership and have walked the path of service that allows them to build strong relationships, not only with their students, but the entire community. Core members receive continuous support and professional development that enhances what the credential programs entail and the internal experiences they're having. As a school leader, what I have really appreciated is that TFA leadership collaborates with me as the site leader in how, as a team, we can support the beginning teachers. I urge you to renew the MOU with Teach for America. And one factor that I wasn't going to speak about is my own child is a second-year Teach for America core member. I recommended for her to continue with the process of recruitment because I knew it would open up her eyes even more to more possibilities for herself. So I thank you for your time. And once again, I cannot emphasize enough how much the partnership means to our school communities.
Thank you, Principal Hidari. Our next speaker, Alexandra Cohen. You can unmute, Alexandra.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Hello, my name is Alexandra Cohen, and I'm a 3rd-year teacher at Bayview Elementary. To say that teaching has been one of the hardest things that I have ever done would be the understatement of the decade. And then to put on top of that, a pandemic has made it the most difficult it could potentially be. Through all of these hardships that any teacher will face, the ongoing support that I receive from Teach for America has gotten me through it all. The coaching process alone has helped me grow into a trauma-sensitive, data-driven, culturally responsive educator that I am now and will continue to work towards being. Through regular teaching programs, one learns the basics, how to run a classroom, maybe set up a little bit of social emotional learning and some behavior management. But the unique process of Teach for America, on top of all of that, we learn how to build relationships. We learn and work towards allyship. We learn about the history of our communities, and we learn how to be the most effective educators while for making an impact on our students. It saddens me to think that these passionate people who Teach for America might not be from Teach for America might not be able to come into this district and make the impact that we've already made and are still making. We have seen TFA teachers stay way past their required years. Like myself, we've raised so much money that pours directly into our classrooms, bringing in furniture, books, supplies, etc. We've seen members rise to the top of union and leadership, get nominated for Teacher of the Year. We've seen coaches directly serve at WCC schools and now are aiding us new educators. We have members rise to administration, head of committees at school sites, and so much more. Teach for America is so much more than just teaching. The type of people to apply and to come to work here come to communities like ours and are here to make lifelong impacts on our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is John Valdez Klinger. You can unmute.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Valdez Klinger. I'm a first-year Teach for America core member. I really wanted to talk about the holistic approach of support that Teach for America was able to offer me when I decided to become an educator. Firstly, I did not think that this was something that I could do. Being a Afro-Latinx man, first generation college student, queer college student, I was concerned about the location of where I was going to be and the support that I would be able to have in our schools. I knew that I would be able to be impactful. I had a strong belief that I would be able to reach a connection with my students. But I didn't think that I could actually get here, and Teach for America support was really what allowed me to be able to do that. Let's talk a little bit about the holistic support that I have. Firstly, first thing I said was, there's no way I can move across the country. I have incredible bad credit. I will never get an apartment. This is not going to happen. Teach for America said, we will help you with this. We will figure out your finances. We will figure out how to get you there. You just think about where you want to get, and we will make sure that we get you there. The other thing that I was extremely concerned about was just this roadblocks in the process of making this happen. Testing, credentialing, things that I had absolutely no idea, especially after 15 years of being a working professional coming into a new system. I needed a hand in order to be able to do this, and Teach for America was able to hold my hand and say, okay, I want you to focus on the impact that you're going to make towards your kids, and we will take care of the rest. We will do the credentialing. We will make sure that you have all the needs in order to get you there. And I just want you to concentrate on the impact that you're going to have on your children. And because of that, I think that it's a wonderful idea for it to be considered again. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jose De Leon. Mr. De Leon, you can unmute.
Good evening, board trustees, Mr. Aurelio, Dr. Greenwood, Ms. Collins. So some of the things that I want to talk about is the CTC program replacement for the Cal State East Bay program that the district used to run. It was the East Bay program did help a lot of our grad tutors become teachers in the district. Also, another roadblock that we've run into with getting subs or people in is some CBEST support. Sometimes the CBEST support in taking the test, but sometimes as an incentive, paying for the CBEST for a sub or for incoming teacher may be a good incentive in the long run. And the other one is I really like the comments about the referral system. One of the things that a lot of the schools, Kennedy, Richmond, Pinole, we have seen more and more of our graduates coming back after they get their bachelor's to teach, but they're looking for some support with the credential program because they're just out of college, or some more guidance. And as principals, as we find quality people, we were asking for a way to streamline the process to get them hired for our site. And one of the reasons is to keep them at our sites. If they get a better offer someplace else and we have to wait for postings, etc., if we can make a referral and get some priority on this personnel, because we already have some idea of who they are and how they can benefit the campus. I think that goes for all principals across the district. And we appreciate the work that HR does with the principals to get our sites staffed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. De Leon. Next is Taylor Parham. You may unmute.
Hi there. I'm the proud principal of Lincoln Elementary in Richmond, and I'm in my 9th year here working in the district. I am an alum of Teach for America. I was placed at Dijon Middle School from 2012 to 2014 to serve my 2 years as a corps member. Dr. Greenwood was actually my very first principal, and I learned a ton from her. And I loved my time at Dijon. I ended up staying 5 years there. Absolutely loved it. And then I've been at Lincoln in school leadership this is my 4th year, first as assistant principal and now as principal. So I was at Dijon for 5 years. I was very grateful to receive the Teacher of the Year award while I was at Dijon. And now on the other side of it as a school leader, I've just really, really appreciated working with Teach for America because of how extremely collaborative they are. They're very open with their communication. I've found their coaching model to be very, very responsive to what we need as a school. They very much are listening to what we want and what we need. I've found working with our corps members, they tend to be very positive, very much team players, and extremely student focused. So I just want to continue to advocate for the partnership with Teach for America, both from my positive experience as a corps member and also now working with corps members and the TFA team. It's just been a very positive experience. So thank you very much for your time.
Our next speaker, Catherine Acosta-Berpracas, you can unmute.
Good evening, board members and staff. My name is Catherine Acosta-Berpracas, and for the past 8 years, I've been the proud principal of Montalvan Manor K-8, but I didn't start there. My family immigrated from Lima, Peru with the hopes of a better future. I was a 4th grader and I didn't speak a single word of English, but I was lucky. I had Mrs. Spiker and she changed my life. I was propped up by her and other caring adults and eventually became the first person in my family to graduate from college. Sadly, my brothers were not so lucky, and I'm still the only one. This injustice is why I became an educator. Every day I show up and I'm driven to make sure that this doesn't happen to any of our students. Teach for America gave me this opportunity to serve, to be that role model that I wish my brothers would have had. Starting with my years teaching special education at Lincoln Elementary School to the role that I serve in now. Sadly, there are vacancies in most schools every single year, and finding caring adults gets harder and harder. This year alone, I had 6 vacancies at Montalvan. I pride myself in actively recruiting teachers that look like my students, and I'm proud to say that 4 of the 6 new hires identify as people of color, 2 of which are currently Teach for America teachers. All 6, however, are equally passionate about providing a high-quality, equitable education for our students, making a true lasting impact in their lives, like Mrs. Spiker did for me. Please approve the partnership with TFA and give us more options to find the dedicated teachers that all of our students deserve. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Julie Yoon. Julie, you can unmute.
Hello.
Yep, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Julie Yoon, and I'm a 3rd-year teacher at Stage Elementary. During my time at TFA, I felt supported as a teacher, with my coach visiting my classroom bi-weekly and trainings on learning content and culturally responsive teaching as well. I also found a community of teachers working in different schools, not only throughout the district, but the Bay Area. Collaboration, asking questions, and working together within the TFA community of teachers has helped me discover new approaches to intervention and more. In my classroom, I have been focusing on intervention, database growth, and PBIS through culture and climate meetings. These are skills that I have learned through TFA and will continue to apply as a teacher. I knew that my school's turnover rate was high, but was still shocked when I returned my second year to a family commenting, "You actually came back." I love my students, community, and coworkers. Stage is a smaller school, and that has allowed me to do buddy systems with the 6th grade students, collaborate with the 3rd grade teacher, and more. If not for TFA, I may not have realized my passion for teaching and gained the skills that were taught through the content training and coach sessions. I feel strongly that Teach for America is an impactful partner for West Contra Costa and is making an impact in our schools and community. I hope we can continue to work in partnership with each other. Thank you again for your time.
Our next speaker is Miss Mensch. I hope I said your name correctly.
Yes, you did. Thank
Right.
you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Minch, and I've spent the last 3 years as a 4th grade teacher at Murphy Elementary. I want to touch on how TFA has supported my time in the classroom. I was drawn to Teach for America because of its mission and commitment to promoting educational equity for all students. I've been able to grow as an educator due to the support I received from the TFA community. My students' academic and socio-emotional success was directly tied to the coaching and support I received through TFA. I've been able to work collaboratively with community members, leaders at my school site, and passionate and like-minded educators across the district to promote student success. Without Teach for America, I would never have realized that I have this deep passion to work with students. I'm excited to dedicate my life as an educator, and I look forward to serving as a champion for all students. This commitment to serving as an educator would not be a reality without the unwavering support of Teach for America and my school site. Thank you for taking the time and making this space to hear about my experience and the experiences of other educators.
Thank you. Miss Dumar, you're our next speaker. You can unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Monique Dumar, and I joined TFA 4 years ago. I wanted to talk about 2 parts of my experience. The first being that I am a second career teacher, and Teach for America gave me the opportunity to transition from corporate accounting into the classroom, which was like my dream career prior to that. And I think without Teach for America, or one of the attractive pieces of Teach for America is that they don't just recruit from schools, but also through to people who are currently employed outside of the teaching career. And as you've heard from many of other people, throughout my experience with Teach for America, I had unconditional support from coaches and from the team and from the community that I think made me into the teacher that I am. But I wanted to talk more about the experience that I've had within TFA that's outside of the classroom over the last couple of years. So I've had the pleasure of working with their institute team for the last 3 years and seeing the dynamic changes that they've made year over year to better prepare our teachers. And I have specifically worked with the teachers that are transitioning to the Bay Area and firsthand see the training and dedication that Teach for America is putting into bringing in these new teachers. And those 2 things combined are why I believe that we should 100% renew with Teach for America. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last comments are from Jesus Galindo. Mr. Galindo, you can unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, trustees, Mr. Aurelio, Dr. Greenwood, Ms. Williams. My name is Jesus Alfredo Galindo, and I have the privilege of being a 3rd grade DLI teacher at Lincoln Elementary, where I've been for the last 8 years. Immediately after graduating from UC Berkeley, I decided to commit my life to proving to the whole world that when given the right opportunities, It doesn't matter where a kid comes from. It doesn't matter what language they speak at home. It doesn't matter if they're undocumented or not. When given the right educational opportunities, those kids will achieve their full potential. I was lucky enough to end up at Lincoln Elementary. And when I told some of my friends about it, when I told my family, they're like, "Are you sure? That sounds like it's going to be a really difficult school." But I knew that being there was aligned to what I wanted to accomplish. And when I got to Lincoln, along with a lot of other TFA members, Lincoln was known for not being that high of a academically performing school. But through relentless and unwavering commitment to our students, we've been able to create a powerful counter narrative at Lincoln Elementary. For 2 years in a row, we have been known as one of the highest performing schools in terms of math growth. And that's because, I think it's a combination of different stakeholders coming together to ensure that our kids, no matter where they come from or whatever social economic status they may be in, when given those opportunities, those kids can achieve their full potential. And a big part, and some of the main architects of the systems at our schools have been members of TFA, whether they're alumni like myself or they're first or second year core members. TFAers have played an integral part in the success of my school, the school I love.
Thank you, Mr. Galindo. So that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you so much to the public. I really appreciate hearing from all the teachers that called in and their experiences. Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, comments?
Thank you, Chair Smithfold. Yeah, I have a few. One, I really love the idea from Principal De Leon about the CBEST. I think that we always struggle with recruiting substitutes, not just us, but statewide. But I'm even more concerned moving forward to next year, having lack of subs. So I really like this idea of potentially paying for the CBEST or training them and supporting them through the process of people interested. Maybe that's something, Ms. Williams, if you remember, that we could explore. The second piece, I love what you're both doing around the residency program. I mean, that's just awesome. I love the recruitment from within house, right? It shows that it obviously has a higher percentage of people of color and people from the community that we know are going to stay long term, right? Possibly. So thank you for your efforts there, and I'm glad to see that it's growing to 15 people. The next, the bonuses. I have this larger concern. Obviously, we've been seeing the articles. We know that there's a lot of people that are leaving the profession because of what's happened this year and potentially what might happen next year, and just how tiring and difficult it's been for teachers and educators in all levels, right? All the way to administrators. And I'm preaching to the choir here because it's been hard for all of us, really. But I'm just concerned about the recruitment of educators and potentially having empty classrooms next year, right? Because I'm hearing this, as you all know, in my day job, I support some of the wealthiest districts in California and the south of Santa Clara as a union rep. And they are talking about having a hard time recruiting and retaining educators. So I know they pay up to $150,000 on a yearly basis for each educator. I know we're going to have challenges, right? So, this idea of the bonuses, I believe what we need to resurface. I would love if Chair Smith falls in agreement, I would love for us to send a letter to the budget committee so that they talk to Dr. Wold about potentially putting some funding aside for signing bonuses, especially around our special education, our bilingual teachers. We literally just talked about it in the last presentation, having a hard time recruiting before and having a hard time probably now. It's going to be even twice as hard. So some bonuses there to support the work that you're both doing, and Thomas as well, Mr. Scott, on the recruitment and your team. Math and science secondary credentials, I know they're already difficult before, right? They're only going to be even more challenging now. So I want us to compete with all these districts. I know that we already are making strides in our salary and other pieces. So I don't want us to lose that with the retention pieces as well. So if Chair Smith also agrees, I would love for us to kind of maybe send it to the budget committee for them to look through and potentially provide some funding for you both outside of what you already get. I don't know if you have a comment on that, Mr. Aurelio.
Just so you know that Dr. Wold's in the audience and he's hearing all of this.
Oh, okay. Well, wink, wink, Dr. Wold. I would love to see some support there in finding some in your hidden chest of money that I know you have in your office. That's a joke. There's no chest, but anyways, Ms. Dr. Wold, if there's anything you can find, I would love if you could support them because some of these wealthier districts, we've been negotiating bonuses the last couple months with the unions. And they're big bonuses, right? We're talking about $10,000 bonus. I'm not saying that's what we need, but if that's who we're competing with, right, as well, I'm just worried. And then lastly, you know, on the whole Teach for America contract, as you all know, I started as a Teach for America core member here 8 years ago. The first person I met was Ms. Glidden, the president of UTR. The second person I met was actually Mr. Galindo, who was the last speaker. And he was the best man in my wedding. So, you know, I owe quite a bit to that. But I just want to say, in the best world scenario for me, Teach for America wouldn't exist because the gap wouldn't exist either, right? For teacher recruitment. I also think that Teach for America has a lot of challenges and difficulties that I disagree with nationwide, right? On just the way that they do things on training and recruitment for other places. What I would say is that my experience locally was very different. And I do think that they have a different mindset than maybe their national Teach for America offices, right? Where they truly care about the development of teachers, them staying in the profession, not just jumping to the next thing. That was my experience, and that was the experience of many of my colleagues. So I keep going back and forth because at the end of the day, I wish we could develop our internal hiring more, right? And I know we were, but now with the current pandemic and everything else, I'm just really concerned that we would end up with empty classrooms otherwise. So Chair Smith-Folds, my personal view is that I would recommend this contract to the full board for discussion so that we can continue the recruitment of Teach for America members in our district, where we also can have a little bit more say, like it was mentioned, on who they bring us, how they develop them, and then also how we support them in the classroom. And then the last piece I will say is that I really like the idea of a stipend for mentorship and mentor not just Teach for America teachers, but all new teachers in our district. I know that's one of the things that you said, that you both said in your presentation, that you're fighting against other districts in the recruitment. I would love for us to develop a mentorship program as well, more than what we have in TIP, but just overall. And I just want to say thank you both for all your recruitment work. I know it's quite a bit, so I appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you for being here. Chair Smith-Folds, that was my last comment.
Thank you so much. I'm glad Dr. Wool is in the audience. I want him to give you what you need. My mama always said you need to ask for what you want. So that slide needs to be cut and pasted and in an email to him, because you need it. We can't ask you to do a job if you don't have the resources to do it well. So I think that the money can be found, figured out. That's not on us. They can figure it out. But you need to have the resources to be able to do the job that's required of you and to do it successfully. Representation matters. Representation matters. We need to have in front of these students people who look like them and have their shared experience. It matters in the education system. I knew the numbers, but I was shocked to see that only 12% of our teachers are Black. I was even more shocked to see 51% are white or Caucasian. We good. Representation matters. So if we're going to run anything forward, we need to run it with the idea and the mindset that representation matters. That's not saying that we should not hire white teachers. I'm not saying that. I'm saying representation matters. That it matters that we have teachers in front of our students who look like them. I also think that we need to start picking up some best practices. We had 10 people call that were Teach for America. Ask them how they can help us. Like, what can you do to help those best practices? Because they just learned it. They learned what the best practices was with their mentor teachers. Will bring them in and help them with the tip and help them formulate all of those things that they said worked really well for them. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel, but I think we have to ask strong questions and say, show us what made it good for you. what made this work for you? What can we use that they had? If we put this contract forward, if we push this contract forward, I really do want to be clear about what I want. Like, I really want Black male teachers, Black female teachers, and teachers of color. Those are two different things. Black and people of color are two different things. So I want the Teach for America to be clear. I want Black male teachers, Black female teachers, and teachers of people of color who are teachers. And if we're doing 3 years, they got 3 years. They can bring all of that back, and then our percentage numbers can look like they represent the students that we teach. That's the ultimate goal, is to get those percentage numbers up to where they represent the students that we teach in the district. I think that that's my only comment. Oh, we got 5 minutes. We are doing well. Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, I will co-author a letter with you, but since Dr. Wool is here, he can hear the letter, give them what they need. We can put it in a formal email if you want, but he's here, he knows. I'm okay bringing the Teach for America contract forward, but I want to do it under the guise of we're asking for something specific. We're asking for 40 specific teachers coming to our hiring plate. Like, we want something very specific. I want us to build our internal bandwidth to get, if that's paying for the CBES, if that's getting rid of any other barriers, is that having mentor teachers, if that's doing bonuses and stipends, anything we need to build up internally, I want us to do that. I love the idea of a teacher academy. I knew I wanted to be a teacher since I was little, so it was real easy for me to say, I want to be a teacher. And I think that we have those people in the district too. That's like, I want to be a teacher, whether their parents were teachers, their brothers and sisters are teachers, we have that. And I also want us to talk about that referral process, because I too have 3 or 4 people I could drop a name to you. So like, there is a good process for that. Those are all of my comments. Our next academic committee meeting will be March 22nd. This was a special meeting, and this was a special meeting to talk about the DLI and to talk about teacher recruitment cycle. Those will come back to us because this is an ongoing conversation. We never kind of say something academic and put a bow on it. We continue to talk about it and go layer by layer. Mr. Aurelio, the future agenda items we kind of talked about in the meeting. Right. Mr. Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, do you have any to add? I'm really trying to get us out of here by 6 because I know you two gentlemen have to be somewhere. Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, do you have anything to add to our future agenda items?
Not that I can think of in this minute, Trustee Smith-Folds. Thank you.
Okay, and then I would like to invite Ms. Williams and Dr. Greenwood back to give us better, more information and a more in-depth slide on what we can do with not only retention, but support. So not only recruitment, but recruitment, retention, and support in all forms of teaching and what we need to do to help. Yes, Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy.
Sorry, Chair Smith-Folds. I did remember one item, which is I would love to get an update on summer school and the progress there. Maybe not for the 22nd, but maybe for the next one, to give enough time to staff. That way we can just get a quick update. Thank you.
And also we need to invite Miss Edith back, Edith McCormick Jordan back. We need to invite her back to give us an update and look at numbers and such. Yes, sir.
And she is agendized for the March 22nd virtual.
Look at that. Fantastic. That one is done. That is it. We have 2 minutes. We're 2 minutes early. Thank you everyone so much for joining the academic subcommittee. At our height, we had 54 attendees here. So great job, everyone.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Dr. Greenwood, and thank you, Ms. Williams. Thank you, Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy. Thank you, Mr. Aurelio. And we will see you guys next time, March 22nd. Please keep a lookout for the agenda.
Right.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chair Smith-Folds.
No worries. Bye.